Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Tcg Sam, and in today's video, I'm going to bring you guys a complete Mathmech guide, the only one you'll ever need if you want to learn what the Mathmechs do, and if you want to learn how to beat them, or learn how to play them. So if you guys enjoy this type of content, be sure to let me know by leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing. So first, two one-card combos with Mathmech Circular. Circular, of course, is the central part of the Mathmech strategy. Just very briefly going over it, you're able to activate it in hand to send any Mathmech monster from your deck to the grave as cost, special summon it, and when another Mathmech monster is normal or special while you control a Circular, you're able to add a Mathmech spell or trap. So why is this card so powerful, and what can it do by itself? So if we start with just Circular, activating the Circular effect in our hand is going to allow us to send Mathmech Sigma to the graveyard, special summoning out our Mathmech Circular. Mathmech Sigma's effect is if we don't have a monster in the extra monster zone, we can special summon it back, but banish it when it leaves the field. This is perfect because it allows us to self-contain Circular as a one-card combo, and it allows us to just get a free body on board, as well as trigger Circular's effect to add a Mathmech spell or trap. So in this very first variation of the Circular combo, I'm going to be showing you how you can add any spell or trap in the game off of just Circular alone. No other cards in hand, not even discards, just Circular alone, you get any spell or trap in the game. So once we activate Sigma to summon back itself, Circular's effect is going to trigger to allow us to add Mathmech Equation from our deck to our hand, and Mathmech Equation's effect is it targets one Mathmech monster in the graveyard, so it summons it and it gives it a 1000 attack, so essentially is a monster reborn and an extender. So next, we are going to link away specifically the Mathmech Circular into a copy of Link Disciple, and then we're going to activate the effect of Mathmech Equation to summon back the Circular from our graveyard, and then linking away the Circular once again for a copy of Devotee. Now what Devotee does is when it's tributed, you're able to summon two Cyberse tokens, and then you can't summon Link 3s for the rest of the turn, which is totally fine. Those Cyberse tokens are going to help us with the trigger Cyberse Wicket's effect, which is very important. So now we're going to activate Link Disciple, tributing Devotee to draw a card to put a card back. Doesn't matter what it is. The important thing is we get Devotee's effect to summon out two Link tokens. And then from here, we're going to link away one of the tokens plus our Link Disciple into a copy of Cyberse Wicket. Now, Cyberse Wicket's effect is if a Cyberse monster is special summoned to a zone it points to, you can banish one Cyberse monster from your graveyard and add a Cyberse tuner from your deck to your hand. And the way we're going to trigger that is by linking off our token into a copy of our Lingeribo. Next, we're going to activate the Cyberse Wicket since a monster with the Cyberse monster is special summoned to a zone it points to, banishing either Devotee or Disciple. The only important one to keep is Circular in the graveyard, so we're just going to end up banishing Devotee, and then we are going to add a Mathmech Nabla from our deck to our hand. So this combo is only possible because you play Nabla. The only way to do it with one card Circular is if you play Nabla in your deck. What Nabla does is you can tribute one other Cyberse monster to special summon one Mathmech monster from your deck. That's the most relevant effect. So essentially that's going to get us our last level 4 that we need for Alambertian. So here we're going to link away the Cyberse Wicket and the Lingeribo into a copy of our Splash Mage, activating the Splash Mage effect to summon back very specifically Mathmech Circular. And then finally, since we all have done this without our normal summon, we can normal summon Mathmech Nabla, activating Mathmech Nabla effect to tribute the Splash Mage in order to summon a level 4 Mathmech monster from our deck. That's going to be Mathmech Diameter. And now we have 4 level 4s on the field, and we're going to be able to overlay all 4 of them for a copy of Pre-Mathmech Alambertian. Alambertian has a variety of effects, but the effect we're going to be using here is when you can detach 4 XYZ materials to add any spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So essentially, you can search floodgates like Summon Limit, Dimensional Barrier, Anti-Spell Fragrance, like any spell or trap that you want. And this is off of just a single Mathmech Circular. So you can see how insane Circular is in the pure Mathmech deck, and some of the crazy things that you can do, like searching any spell or trap in the game is unheard of, pretty much, especially off of just a single card. And considering how like you don't have to play any real bricks in the deck in order to accomplish it, this is a combo you definitely need to watch out for, and definitely will punish opponents who do not play hand traps against Mathmech and opt for board breakers like Dark Ruler No More instead. So that was probably the combo you haven't really seen too much on YouTube, but now I'm going to be going over the standard Mathmech combo so you know what to expect and what to stop when you play against it. Okay, so now we're going to be going over the standard one-card combo that you're probably going to see more often when playing against Mathmechs. because most of the time people won't want to commit too hard going first into the searching any spell or trap combo, just because it loses to a lot of hand traps. So the standard Mathmech combo you're going to see instead is starting with Circular. Circular is going to send Mathmech Sigma to the graveyard. So starting off the same way again, activating Sigma's effect to special summon itself back from the grave, and then activating Circular to add a Mathmech Solar Trap. That's going to add Super Factorial this time. Mathmech Super Factorial is reminiscent of a card like Tri-Brigade Revolt, except in this case it offers a lot more disruptive potential and is honestly the biggest disruption that this deck has. And the fact that it's so searchable off of one of your key engine cards makes this like a very scary contender and makes Super Factorial a card you have to be able to play around in order to be able to play. So what does Super Factorial do? You're able to target up to 3 Mathmech monsters in your graveyard with different names, then either XYZ summon with them immediately, summon them back, XYZ summon with them, or summon them back and synchro summon with them immediately. So you're going to see why that's so good in just a sec. Next up, we're going to overlay our Mathmech Circular and our Mathmech Sigma for a copy of Pre-Mathmech Alambertian. Alambertian's effect is going to allow us to attach 2 XYZ materials to add any Mathmech card from our deck to our hand, and that's going to be Mathmech Diameter. Since we haven't normal summoned yet, we can normal summon Mathmech Diameter, and on Mathmech Diameter's normal summon, its effect allows us to summon 1 level 4 or lower Cyberse monster from our graveyard. So we're going to be summoning back either one, it doesn't matter. We're just going to be linking it off right away for a copy of Link Disciple, and then turning the other one into a copy of Link Devotee. And then from here, we're going to activate the effect of Pre-Mathmech Alambertian. Its other effect on the field is you're able to tribute one monster, and then special summon back 1 Mathmech monster from your hand or your graveyard without targeting. So now essentially we get a free body off of Alambertian, as well as 2 free tokens off of Link Devotee. And that's kind of the powerful part about the Link Disciple Devotee engine. It just gives you so many Cyberse bodies. So activating Alambertian, tripping off Devotee, it doesn't matter at all which one we summon back, so we'll just summon back Diameter. That's going to trigger Devotee in a new chain to summon out 2 Cyberse tokens, and we are unable to summon level Link 3 or higher monsters for the rest of the turn, but that's okay because our combo doesn't need it. We're able to turn the Link Disciple and one of the tokens into a copy of Cyberse Wicked, and then from here, you have a couple of options. So depending on if you play like a card like Pit Knight early, you can do something with that. But personally, I just play IP Masquerena. So from here, all I would do is just turn the Diameter and the token into a copy of IP. On the summon of IP, that's going to trigger Cyberse Wicked to allow us to banish 1 Cyberse monster from our grave. It's very important you don't banish any of the level 4s. So here you just banish one of the random Cyberse links in your graveyard to add Diameter, since it is a Cyberse tuner. This is going to provide us with some very powerful follow-up, and makes it so even if our board gets broken, we still have a way to play next turn with Diameter and Sigma in the graveyard. So now you're able to set Super Factorial and end your turn. So what does this actually constitute? So right away, without even considering Super Factorial, you have IP Masquerena, and that gives you a couple of different options. So personally, I play a card like Appaloosa in my extra deck, and here you have 3 materials to summon Appaloosa right away that can't be destroyed by card effects, which is very important against something like Ghost Ogre. So you have that. You could also go into something like Mech Crusader Avermax with IP and Cyberse Wicked, and then it can't be destroyed by card effects. It can be very difficult for some decks to out. But let's just say you summon your chosen Link monster, and then you also activate Super Factorial. So why is this card so powerful? You're able to target these 3 Mathmechs in your graveyard, special summon them back, and then we're going to overlay them immediately for Prime Mathmech Laplacian. So Prime Mathmech Laplacian, what it does is when it's XYZ summoned, you can detach up to 3 materials from it and apply the following effects. If you detach 1 material, you can either choose to send a monster your opponent controls to the graveyard, send a spell or trap they control to the graveyard, and send a random card from their hand to the graveyard. So you can detach 3 materials from this and apply each one of those effects once. So you can send a monster they control, send a spell or trap they control, and send a random card from their hand to the graveyard. So that takes away 3 cards from your opponent. And since you used Mathmech Diameter as an XYZ material for Prime Mathmech Laplacian, Diameter reads that once per turn, during the turn this monster was special summoned, it gains the effect to negate anything your opponent activates. So not only do you send 3 cards away from your opponent, you also negate any one of their cards. So off of the Super Factorial alone, we've taken away 3 cards and a potential 4th one with the negation that we're putting up. And that's not to mention, here, we still have the IP Mask Arena. IP Mask Arena, like I mentioned, it can do anything from summon cards like Appaloosa, it can summon Access Code Talker, it can summon Decode Talker Heat Soul to get a draw. The world is really your oyster at this point. You could do anything you want with the IP Mask Arena, because there is no Cyberse lock from like the Super Factorial, so you don't have to summon like a Cyberse Link monster. So that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, from here, you should just be able to win during the next turn because you took away so much from your opponent. Plus you have that all-important follow-up with the copy of Diameter. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one card combo. The great thing about Mathmech Circular though is that not only is it a going first combo piece, but it also helps you OTK going second despite its restriction of only allowing you to attack with one monster. So with a single Mathmech Circular, you can actually clear a very big board and actually OTK your opponent through that despite that. So starting off with our Mathmech Circular, we are going to go second this time, activating Circular in our hand to send Mathmech Sigma to the graveyard, special summoning it out to the field, activating the effect of Sigma to special summon itself back from the graveyard, and that's going to trigger the effect of Mathmech Circular. And in this case, it really doesn't matter whether you add Mathmech Equation or Super Factorial. The cases where you would add Mathmech Equation would be if you suspect your opponent has some sort of interruption and you'll need an additional extender in order to be able to link climb and kill them. Then you can add something like Mathmech Equation, or if you suspect your opponent might have something like a Nibiru, the Primal Being, you can add Mathmech Super Factorial instead, which makes it so if you get Nibiru, you'll at least have a Laplacian set up with the Diameter, so you'll still be able to put up some form of interruption even though you got Nibiru. So in this case, it really doesn't even matter, and I'm just not even going to add any of them at all, just to show that like it really doesn't matter which one we add. We're going to then overlay the two for a copy of Pre-Mathmech Alambertian. On summon, that's going to attach two materials to add our Mathmech Diameter. Since we haven't normal summoned yet, we can normal summon Diameter and summon back any one of our Mathmech monsters in the graveyard. It really doesn't matter which one. We are then going to link specifically the Alambertian away just because we need monsters with levels on the board for Update Jammer. We're going to turn these two into a copy of Splash Mage first. Splash Mage's effect is going to allow us to special summon one Cyberse back from the graveyard, so you can special summon either Circular or Sigma, just not the Alambertian, summoning itself back. From here, we're going to turn these two into a copy of our Update Jammer. So Update Jammer is great because it kind of helps us cheat around the restriction of only being able to attack with one monster, because Update Jammer gives a monster that uses it as link material 2 attacks during the battle phases, and it doesn't have to be on monsters, which is the big part. You can attack twice directly if needed, and that's the great thing about a card like Update Jammer. Next, depending on the situation, if you don't need more than 2 pops, so if you don't need to destroy two or more cards from your opponents, you can directly link up into Access Code here, activating Update Jammer as Chainlink 1, Access Code is Chainlink 2 to gain 2000 attack. From here, you can destroy up to 2 cards if needed, and then you have a 4300 Access Code Talker that can attack twice, and that's 8600 damage, which is enough for game. Now, if in this situation, you either need an extra pop, or you need to beat over some monsters because you can't destroy their entire board, you can actually turn Splash Mage and Update Jammer into a copy of Transcode Talker. Now, I recommend using Update Jammer to give Transcode a second attack, even though we're going to be linking it away, just in case for some reason you're unable to climb into the Access Code. And because Update Jammer's effect to be able to make the monster attack twice per turn is actually not once per turn. So if you use it as a link material again, you're still able to do that. We're going to activate Transcode Talker to bring back the Update Jammer, and then from here we can turn these two into a copy of our Access Code Talker, which is going to trigger the Update Jammer and the Access Code Talker to gain 3000 attack. So now we have a 5300 Access Code Talker that can attack up to 2 times with 3 destroys, because we have 3 monsters with different attributes in our graveyard. So if somehow that's still not enough, or you need an extra pop, we can just rewind a couple of steps and go back to the point where we actually have our copy of and our one monster on the board. We have our Alambertian, and we have the Diameter that we summoned back. From here, if you need an extra pop and you play something like Link Disciple or Lingaribo, you can actually turn this into either one. So Link Disciple is probably the more common one. You can just turn it into Link Disciple to get an extra light in the graveyard. And then from here, you're going to be able to summon your Splash Mage. Splash Mage is going to be able to summon back Circular. And then you just do the exact same combo that I just showed. Depending on how many pops you need, you can summon like Update Jammer, turn the Update Jammer and Splash Mage into Transcode. Transcode bring back Update. And then link off the two for a copy of Access Go Talker. And now you can have up to 4 pops if you really need to clear that many cards from your opponent's board. It just goes to show like how versatile the single copy of Circular can be. And that's not even mentioning, like, we always have a contingency plan with this combo as well. Whether we search a copy of Secret Factorial or we search a copy of Equation, we're always going to be able to have a backup play, no matter if we get hand trapped or if our opponent has interruptions as well. So really insane. Not only is Circular able to help you going first, but going second, you can break boards and just OTK them right afterwards. Now, some people are also playing the final Sigma. For those of you who don't know what it does, essentially it is like the boss monster of the Mathmech archetype. It has 3000 attack, and it's able to also help you OTK in certain scenarios. There is a combo, which I'm not going to cover in this video, but I'm going to just briefly go over it, so you know what's coming if you play against this deck, or if you want to try that combo out, you can definitely do so. It requires Mathmech Nabla and Mathmech Multiplication. You're able to use Nabla to summon Multiplication from your deck. Multiplication makes itself level 8, and then you turn the 2 into a copy of Final Sigma. Multiplication will double its attacks to 6000, and Nabla will give it 2 attacks on monsters during the battle phase. So essentially, off of your regular combo, or if you can just get Nabla plus any Cyberse monster on the field, you're able to have a 6000 towers that can attack twice and does double battle damage to things it battles. So anything with 2000 or less attack on your opponent's field that's in attack position is going to allow you to OTK them. But the reason I'm not covering that is because I personally just feel like the Access Code combo is a lot better. You're still going to have to, unless you hard draw something like Nabla, you're still going to have to play into a card like Nibiru with that combo, so I don't think it's as good as Access Code. It also requires you to play Nabla and Multiplication in your main deck, and that takes away some slots from other cards you can play. But that's just something to consider. Just be aware of it. If you see a Multiplication come out against a Mathmech, like when you're playing against Mathmech, just be aware they're going to be able to synchro summon it into their unaffected monster, and it'll become very difficult for you to kill it afterwards. So that's gonna do it for the one card Circular combos. That's pretty much everything you really need to know what Circular does. It essentially builds boards going first, breaks boards going second. There are also some things now I want to cover that you probably haven't seen on YouTube regarding this deck. Just a couple of things to remember. So the very first one, of course, is just gonna be about Circular. Circular doesn't have to always send a card like Sigma, but why this is relevant is because if you open something like Sigma Circular, there's no point in dumping another Sigma to the graveyard because Sigma is just once per turn. Instead, in this case, you can activate Circular, sending Mathmech Diameter to the graveyard. The reason we're doing that is because we always want Mathmech Diameter in circulation so that we can always bring it back with something like Splash Mage or Secret Factorial, and then threaten to give our XYZ or Synchro a negate, which is very important and very difficult for our opponent to deal with. And then from here, if you open a Sigma, you can just normal summon it because we don't need to search a Diameter later on in the combo, so we don't need a normal summon. This will trigger Circular to add any of your Mathmech and traps, of course. And then later on in the combo, if you just XYZ summon with these two and end up detaching the Sigma, you still have the Sigma effect to be able to special summon itself back as an extender. So definitely something good to remember. You always want to get Mathmech Diameter into the graveyard. And especially if you open a card like Sigma, it just makes it so Circular still gets a lot of value even if you're dumping Diameter. Another thing about Circular that you should remember is if you open something like Circular Diameter, this is a very powerful combo for a couple of reasons. Of course, we're going to start with Mathmech Circular dumping Mathmech Sigma to the graveyard, so special summoning itself out. But then now, since we already have a card like Mathmech Diameter, we can normal summon Diameter and actually chain block our Mathmech Circular. Since we both effects activate on the summon, we're going to be able to use Circular as Chainlink 1 to add any Mathmech or trap, and Chainlink 2 Diameter to special summon back Sigma. This means that we are able to chain block our Circular so our opponent can't Ash Blossom it, meaning that we're guaranteed to get one of our Mathmech and traps from our deck to our hand. In this case also, since we haven't even used Sigma's effect yet, if we overlay these two for Alambertian, we can get Alambertian search. But then we also have a Sigma in the graveyard again that can come out from its own effect later on. So this just makes it so you're making the most of the cards that you have access to, and you're also protecting yourself from certain hand traps as well. So it's definitely something good that you want to remember. The next thing you should remember is specifically about Mathmech Sigma. A few things about this card. One, it can be used not only in the graveyard, but also in your hand. So you're able to essentially special summon it under the same conditions as you can from the graveyard, where if you have no monsters in the extra monster zone, you can special summon it back. And that's very important because if you hard draw a card like Sigma, you're able to not necessarily have to use up your normal summon on it. So if you draw like Sigma Diameter, like that's still combo. You can still make your Alambertian. These are not both just normal summons. That's also something important to remember. But also, speaking of normal summoning, it's also important to remember Sigma actually, as a normal summon, is not even that bad, because we're able to normal summon Sigma and special summon any one of our Mathmech extenders from our deck, from our hand to the field. And that means not only do we have a free extender later on with the Sigma effect, but also when Prime Mathmech Alambertian searches Circular, you're able to have a guaranteed way to trigger the Circular without having to use Alambertian. And that's important because then you can go on with your Link Disciple, Link Devotee combo with the Alambertian effect. So it's just something to remember that it isn't always having to go Circular, sending Sigma, and then summoning itself back. There are many different ways in this deck to get to your final end board, and that just makes the deck so much cooler, because now you don't have to necessarily only open Circular. There are just so many ways for you to get to it. The next thing I want to talk about is specifically Mathmech Super Factorial. This is the key trap card in Mathmech, and there are just a couple of things I want to go over in it. You probably already know this already, but if you activate Super Factorial, targeting your 3 monsters, and your opponent chains a card like DD Crow to remove one of the targets, you still try to resolve it as much as possible. So for example, if I targeted these 3 monsters to try to XYZ summon into our pre-Mathmech Laplacian, and our opponent, let's say DD Crows our Mathmech Circular, we still are able to summon out the pre-Mathmech Alambertian. And while this obviously isn't as good as summoning out Prime Mathmech Laplacian, it still makes it so our Super Factorial isn't just completely nullified by a single DD Crow. Yes, it takes away most of its impact, but still, it's just something important that you can remember. Another thing that's important to remember is Super Factorial actually doesn't have to target 3 monsters in the graveyard. And why this is important is because if, for example, Super Factorial is your only card and your opponent, let's say, has like nothing at all, you don't need to summon a card like Laplacian. Instead, you can activate Super Factorial, summoning 2 monsters, and then you actually make the Alambertian like that right away, so you can search your follow-up and just win from there. That's also very important to remember. And finally, it probably doesn't come up when Super Factorial targets monsters to actually synchro summon, the materials get shuffled back into the deck. So it's important to try your best to keep Sigma in the graveyard as possible, because if you end up synchro summoning with the Sigma, it does go back to the deck, which does take away one form of your follow-up. One final thing I want to cover about Sigma, I should have covered it during the Sigma section, is Sigma can actually be treated as a non-tuner if used for the synchro summon of a Mathmech monster, and that can be important because there are quite a few tuners in this deck, of course being Diameter, Sigma, Nabla. So if you end up Diameter summoning back Sigma, you can still synchro the 2 into like the Mathmech level 8 if you want, just because of Sigma's effect. That's gonna do it for general like Mathmech things to know. Now I'm gonna be talking about general like Cyberse tips that you need to know when playing this deck. So whenever you get to a point in the Cyberse deck where you have 2 monsters on the board, you have quite a few options you can actually do with it. So in the Mathmech deck specifically, the very first thing you can do is go for the Link Disciple, Link Devotee combo. Because Link Disciple is able to trigger Devotee's effect to summon out your 2 tokens. And then from here, you're able to link away the Disciple and one of the tokens into a Wicked. And then, should you play a card like Lingaribo, you can turn the last token into a copy of Lingaribo, which triggers Cyberse Wicked's effect to be able to search a Cyberse tuner from your deck to your hand. So if you're trying to go for follow-up, Mathmech Diameter just guarantees that you have that rank 4 access or link 2 access during the next turn, and that can be important in certain scenarios. But another option that you have when you have just 2 random Cyberse monsters on the board, you have the option to go for a card like Yugioh Yu-gi-oh Heat Soul. Being able to turn these 2 into a copy of Splash Mage, and as long as Splash Mage doesn't summon a water Cyberse back from your graveyard, you can summon any Cyberse back, link the 2 away into a copy of Yugioh Yu-gi-oh Heat Soul. And this is a very good play to give yourself more resources to be able to control the game state from then on, because Yugioh Yu-gi-oh Heat Soul generates you 1 card on your turn, and then generates you another card on your opponent's turn, and these can be hand traps, it can be follow-up, and it makes it very difficult for your opponent to actually be able to play, because if they can't out the Yugioh Yu-gi-oh Heat Soul, once again on your turn it's going to generate another card, and then you're going to draw another one for turn, and then your opponent, and then if you somehow don't kill your opponent, you draw a 5th card as well. So essentially Yugioh Yu-gi-oh Heat Soul just grants you like just constant advantage, and it can get out of hand very quickly if your opponent has no answer to your Heat Soul. So something important to remember is if you already like cleared your opponent's board and you're just left with 2 random Cyberse monsters, you can just make Splash Mage go into Heat Soul, and that can be very good at giving yourself more advantage to be able to beat your opponent from there. But the final thing to remember, Splash Mage can actually turns into a access code talker on its own. So we're going to be able to use Splash Mage. Splash Mage summons back any one of our level 4 or lower Cyberse monsters. And then at this point, depending on how many pops you need, you can turn that into any Link 1. So we can turn it into like Disciple, Splash Mage, or Link Revo. It really doesn't matter, because we're just going to be linking away the 2 monsters for a copy of Transcode Talker. Transcode Talker will bring back Splash Mage or the Link Disciple. It really doesn't matter. You're just going to turn these 2 into a copy of Access Code Talker right after. So essentially any 2 Cyberse monsters is a 5300 Access Code Talker with upwards of 3 destroys. So even though this isn't enough to kill your opponent, it can be enough to just clear your opponent's entire board, because you have a very big monster that your opponent must deal with, or they're probably going to lose in the next turn, as well as 3 cards you can destroy from your opponent's side of the field. That's the beauty of the Cyberse extra deck. You're able to essentially turn any 2 Cyberse monsters into a plethora of things. In this deck specifically, you have access to the Wicked play to search for guarantee follow-up. You have the Heat Soul play to give yourself card advantage in a simplified game state. And of course, you have the Access Code play to clear out pretty much your opponent's entire board. Those are just some things you should know when you're playing this deck. If you guys think I missed anything super important, then let me know in the comment section below, and I'd just be happy to answer any questions you have about this deck. This deck has a lot of neat intricacies like this, and of course it has a lot of options with the Cyberse extra deck, which is why I just love like Cyberse decks in general. You have probably the most generic and the best like extra deck materials out there for you to use. It doesn't matter if you're locked into Cyberse monsters from like these effects, because some of the best monsters in the game are like Access Code Talker, Yugioh Talker, Heat Soul, and you can just still do stuff with them. That's gonna do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Once again, if you guys did, please remember to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps keep me motivated to keep posting more videos like this. If you guys want to see like a dedicated test hand video for this deck as well, I can definitely do that. Just let me know in the comment section below. But with that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.